Welcome everybody to Forza Horizon 5, and today we're taking a look at the 1980 Subaru BRAT GL. Now this was produced between 1978 and 1994, with this first generation produced between 1978 and 1980. Now BRAT stands for Bi-Drive Recreational All-Terrain Transporter, and this has jump seats in the rear bed of the vehicle, purely to get around what was called the chicken tax back in the 80s and 70s. So that basically put a 25% import tariff on imported trucks into the US. So to get around that, Subaru added these jump seats to the vehicle, which as you can see are very basic, but in doing so it meant it could classify this vehicle as a passenger car, which dropped the tariff from 25% to 2.5%. So yeah, 10 times less, which made this a very affordable car to import into the US. And most people no doubt took those seats out and made it a full blown pickup truck, as that's basically what this car's designed to do. So and I doubt anyone would really want to ever go in those seats, as they look quite unsafe. But yeah, this is a very workmanlike vehicle. It's very basic. You only got wind down windows, as you can see there, a simple 4-speed gearbox. You got all-wheel drive, that, as you can see there by the transmission case there, can be transferred from 4-wheel drive to front-wheel drive, just to give it better emissions and better miles per gallon. It's all very basic. Yeah, you got AC and stuff like that, but there's not too much in the way of creature comforts in here, because at the end of the day it's a workman's vehicle. So and that is something it can do very well, because obviously it's got the 4-wheel drive, but it's also got a very basic but functional engine as well. It's a 1.6 litre flat 4 engine, which produces 69 horsepower and 84 pounds-feet of torque. Now obviously that low amount of power means you're not going to be hauling massive amounts of weight around, but it is going to be able to more than manage to be able to deal with off-road conditions with the all-wheel drive and the decent ride height, and that decent amount of torque will also help you up hills or anything like that. So it's a very workmanlike vehicle, quite frankly, and I like the look of it. I like this Starsky & Hutch kind of like paint style it's got going on, which is nicely done, and just looks very good. I prefer the look of this to the second generation, which looks a bit boring, quite frankly, in comparison to this. But that car did get a better engine with way more power, and was a little bit more upmarket, I guess you could say. But still, this is a very good car overall, and I'm glad that has finally been added to this game, although it's obviously not the first time it's been added to a Forza game, as it's been in plenty of games in this series before. But nonetheless, let's get out onto the open road and see what this car can do. So this is obviously not a very powerful car, so it's not going to be getting up to the fastest of speeds on this drag strip, but we'll see what it can do regardless, and then we'll get it around the tracks. Let's see what it can do. So no fuss start off the line with this car because of the all-wheel drive and the lack of power to really make those wheels spin. It's decent revving at around 6,000 RPM, and it's far from the slowest car that we've had that's under 100 horsepower. So we say it's probably a little bit more sprightly than, say, the Toyota Sports 800. That engine does make it a little bit unique. With that many flat engines in the US back in the day. I would like the second generation of this vehicle though, just because it had, like I said, a little bit more oomph. It had a slightly larger engine at 1.8 litres, plus you could get a turbocharged version as well. Although I think that only came with a 3-speed automatic, which seems a bit stupid to me, to give a vehicle a bigger engine with more power and a turbocharger, and then completely nullify a lot of that with a sloppy automatic gearbox that only has 3 speeds. But regardless, that's what you had to deal with back in the day. So right, let's see the stats on this car before we hoon it around the track. So we're in D class, as expected with that lack of power, and it's quite heavy up the front at 63% front and 37% at the rear. It's purely because it has so little in the way of bodywork at the back, And yeah, the handling is decent, and the speed is okay, and the off-road capability is pretty good as well. But everything else is pretty much on the low side. Braking isn't too much of an issue because it weighs so little, and it's not going to be going particularly quick. But yeah, the launch isn't particularly great, and the acceleration is a little bit on the sluggish side. But yeah, like I said, this is a workman-like vehicle. It's not meant for speed. It's not meant for, you know, drag racing or hooning around a track or anything like that. It's just meant to be a very dependable, very, you know, functionable vehicle that's able to get around anywhere you want it to go, basically. So yeah, but let's get it out on this track. We'll listen to the engine for a little bit first, and then we'll talk about it some more. Yeah, it's not a particularly quick vehicle, as you can see, but that's a given the power it's got. But yeah, it's still not a overly slow car, not 14.8 seconds, which is, yeah, fairly decent for a car of this type. You know, if it had only front-wheel drive or rear-wheel drive, it might have been a little bit quicker. But when you're sharing that amount of power and torque between the four wheels, obviously that's going to nullify it somewhat. But yeah, and it can do 0 to 171 seconds. 0.117, so that's easily one of the slowest cars to 100 we've ever had, and you're not even going to get much more than that anyway because its top speed is 100 mile an hour. So yeah, but at least it can do 100. You know, not many cars below this around this kind of power level can do that, so there is that. And it handles its power nicely. Obviously it's not got a lot of power to challenge its, you know, suspension and its brakes and the four-wheel drive system, but you know, it handles it nicely enough. It's not unpredictable in any kind of dangerous way. But then again, on the flip side is also true in the fact that it's not very exciting either. But you know, like I said, for a worker vehicle it's pretty good, and yeah, you can see that Subaru took inspiration from the likes of the El Camino, and the fact that it's obviously a normal kind of passenger kind of car that's just had the rear chopped off and made a pickup, which is fine. This actually wasn't even sold in Japan, it was purely an import car, which has made it a very popular grey import for Japan in the last few years or so. Grey import meaning a car that was exported but has been imported back into its origin country. So yeah, it's been very popular over in the likes of Japan for that kind of reasons, because obviously it's a car that is extremely rare in Japan, not being sold there. And obviously anything that's rare and unique is desirable in some respects, and obviously with so many of these being made in the US over, you know, a 9-year period, because they were sold up until 1987, you're obviously going to have a lot of them hanging around, and guarantee you probably get one for quite cheap. So yeah, you can get this by getting 80 points in the overall festival playlist, so that is over the course of 4 seasons. I've got it in only 2 because I did pretty much everything in the first one and only had about 19 or so points left to get into get this out of the second season. So yeah, and it's well worth getting, especially since you can probably upgrade this quite a heavy amount and get a fairly decent off-road vehicle in the process. And at the end of the day, you've already got the all-wheel drive system in this car, so if you want to give it a lot of power, that system along with new tyres and new suspension will be able to handle it. So yeah, it's well worth getting. It's nice to see it finally back in a Forza game after not being in this game in the stock game. So yeah, and like I said, it's enjoyable to get, and if you're a Subaru enthusiast who likes off-road vehicles in particular, then yeah, you'll be really enjoying it as well, especially if you give it some stupidly mad upgrades. But yeah, nonetheless, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.